Today we are talking about medicating dogs. So, how to get oral medications. We're focusing on pills mostly today, tablets, capsules, that kind of thing. Ways of getting your dog to take them willingly. Most dogs can be given pills in food as long as the pills in question are okay to be given with food. But some dogs, and if you're watching this, it's probably because yours is one of these dogs, are a little bit trickier. They tend to eat around pills, spit them out, that kind of thing. Or just refuse to eat something that a pill is in. We've been dealing with this here a little bit. So we decided to put a little something together for you to give you hopefully some new ideas to help you with those more difficult to medicate dogs. Let's jump into the slides. All right. So getting your dog to take pills happily. Now, there is a method of pilling that isn't particularly voluntary that you'll see done at times, which involves holding the dog's mouth out open and shoving a pill down their throat. You can train dogs to be okay with this, and I'll show you a little video of one of my awesome colleagues doing that at the end of this video. But otherwise, it's kind of it's kind of stressful and forceful handling. So we're going to look at some ways to get dogs to take pills willingly instead. All right, so first things first, I just wanted to put a plug in here to make sure to ask your vet about any medications you're giving. Can they be given with food? Can the tablets be crushed and ground up? Can you open the capsules and mix the powder? Sometimes it might matter, whether or not you break up a pill, so make sure to ask your vet first. Some meds can be given with food, no problem. Others shouldn't go with food or shouldn't go with certain kinds of food. So make sure to check on that as well. And also, they should let you know, but there are some medications that are less safe to handle for humans. So just make sure you get all that information first before messing around with the medication. All right, so this is what we're talking about today. We're going to first talk about just getting dogs to eat pills by sticking it in food. And even if you feel like your dog is too smart for this and they find the pill no matter what you do, I'm hoping there might still be some ideas in here that will help you. There's almost no end to the ways you can be creative with this. We're going to talk about how not just what you put it in, but how you give it can make a difference to whether or not it gets into the dog easily. And then we'll really briefly talk about training for taking pills. That's really a whole separate topic that deserves its own video for sure, but I just wanted to show you what's possible. All right, so there are more options than you might think for hiding pills in food. Most of us have tried, at least a couple of the standard go-tos, and we'll definitely cover those, but there's more on the list. So these are the general approaches we're going to talk about first when talking about hiding meds in food. We'll talk about gooey or moist, moldable food, sandwich method, which I'll show you what that is in a sec. And then ways to hide the meds by grinding it up or emptying the powder out of capsules and mixing that with something. I think, yep, okay, so I'm going to go to the first video. Okay, so here we're going to be taking a look at gooey foods. Now, peanut butter, probably if you have a difficult to pill dog, you've already tried peanut butter, but we'd be remiss not to include it in a video about pilling or getting dogs to take pills. So peanut butter is really high value for a lot of dogs. And as long as you don't have any allergies to it in your household, it can be a good option. You want to make sure you use a generous amount, really bury it in there. And then try to get your dog to take that whole glob into their mouth at once. Zuma probably had fun making this video. One of my go-tos in my house is string cheese. It's a little bit easier to mold than some of the fattier cheeses that crumble more easily. And then lunch meat or salami is another one that we've had a really good luck with here recently because it's so good that the dog just inhales it. Now, butter is not one I use very often because it's awfully rich, but if you're desperate, you could definitely try this. Butter or cream cheese are both, really, really fatty and creamy and hold together well around a pill. Hot dogs, another go-to, or really any kind of meat, but hot dogs are nice in that you can cut it to the size of the pill and kind of just stick the pill in the middle. And often it's down the hatch before, the dog doesn't chew enough to even notice there was something in there. All right, so we just looked at some really high fat options. And, when you're desperate to get a medication into your dog, unless they have a health condition that precludes them eating some of these fattier foods, you really don't care. You just want to get the pills into them. But if you can get away with using something healthier like canned dog food, that you can feel a little bit better about that, especially if you're doing this every day. So this is just some canned dog food, and I'm just making a big meatball around the pill. And this is a big meatball. It's for a big dog. With a small dog, you'd probably do it a little bit. You want it to be the size where they can take the whole thing in their mouth at once. Okay, so that was our gooey food method. Let's look at some sandwich methods, and this involves layering your pill between different layers of different stuff. So that there, which I went by really quickly, I realize, is one of those pre-made lasagnas you can get at the grocery store. This is a meat lasagna. I stumbled on this one out of desperation when our little foster dog would not take his pills in stuff he normally loved. So what's nice about lasagna is it's got a lot of layers, and those noodles make good hiding spots, and you can kind of bury the pill in the cheese and the sauce and then put noodles on top. So that has worked pretty well. This is also one I've done, and I think this is an idea from our group, which I thought was a really good one. Burying the pill in cream cheese, and some dogs will just take that cream cheese blob by itself. But one thing I've done for our pancake is wrap it in deli meat. Here's Melissa's wrapping it in salami, but that's also a pretty good one. The cream cheese kind of keeps the pill in that roll of meat so it doesn't fall out. Sometimes I can give pills just wrapped in a little piece of deli meat, but it's loose in there, so there's a greater risk that they'll spit it out. And this is another suggestion from someone awesome in our group, which I would never have thought of, which is popping a pill into a blueberry. And I suppose you could do it with other fruit as well. And then a little dollop of something. Here we're using peanut butter to cap it off there. You could probably also use cream cheese for this. I mean, I'd take some of these pills if someone gave them to me like this. All right. So, burying gooey or soft food, sandwich method. We'll talk about grinding up now. Can you get your meds into sort of powder form? Oops, sorry about that. So here I've got some powder from a capsule emptied out on this plate. One of Pancake's meds is a capsule. And there are a lot of things you could mix powder with. One of Pancake's favorite things is whipped cream. So this is one way I've been successful. I've actually now switched to getting him to swallow the entire capsule, but in the beginning I couldn't do that. So to get him to eat the powder, I needed something he really liked. It seemed to have a bitter flavor, and if I mixed it in wet dog food or something, he wouldn't touch it. But in whipped cream, he would scarf it right up. So here's another variation I've used with powder. So there's our powder med. I'm going to cut it in a way. I mean, he's getting the whole thing, but I'm going to mix it with Parmesan, which is a big favorite, nice and salty, flavorful, so can hide the flavor a little bit, and then mix it with something else to hold it together. I'm using cottage cheese here, but you could use anything that your dog loves. Anything kind of like a matrix, a wet matrix that'll hold the powder together. And then Melissa's going to show this is a tablet instead of a capsule. And If you give a lot of meds at home, you probably already have a pill crusher and a pill splitter. So you could use that instead of a hammer. And this she's just going to mix into some wet goo that I actually don't know what that is, but something that the dog will really like. A lot of times these pills are kind of bitter, so you might need to experiment with what makes it most palatable to your dog. Alrighty. So those were just food delivery. Gooey, sandwich, grind up and mix. Now, sometimes you've tried all that and you're still struggling a little bit. You've tried the best stuff you can find in your fridge. I just wanted to talk a little bit about ways to boost the value of what you're giving or the attractiveness so your dog is more likely to take it. And especially, if you're giving pills because your dog's, sick or not feeling super good, you might have to pull out all the stops to get them to consider even tasting what you've put together for them. I think we're on this one. Just a second. Okay, yeah. So one way to boost value is to microwave whatever it is you're giving, especially if it's something that, smells more strongly when microwaved. So here I'm microwaving some lasagna. Here's some melted cheese. So if your dog loves cheese, but regular cheese isn't cutting it right now, a lot of times molding some melted cheese around a pill will do it. Gets nice and greasy. Dogs tend to love it. Now you would be heating up the food first in the microwave, and don't get it too hot. One, you don't want to burn your dog's mouth, and of course, it's possible that too much heat could affect the medication. So, but just warm it up a bit so it smells nice and gets a little bit goopier if it's something like cheese. Parmesan has been a go-to for me for pancakes meds because he's been real tough to get meds into, and he takes like 12 pills a day. I like using it as a garnish on anything that I use as the base. So here I just made a meatball out of canned dog food. That could be anything. And I'm going to roll it in the Parmesan. And that can really make it much more attractive to the dog. Jasper volunteered for this one. All right, value boosters covered. Oh, by the way, if you're in the group and watching, I can see your questions if you post them under the video. All right, so just to summarize there, we talked about the basics, and this is kind of the first step that most people have already thought of, but maybe you haven't, been as creative as you could be with some of these options. So gooey or moldable food to shape around the pill, sandwiching the pill between different layers of really good stuff, or grinding up a tablet or emptying a capsule into something, usually moist, and mixing it around in there. Okay, so another thing that can really help you get those pills down is to give them to your dog in a way that increases the chances they're just going to swallow it. I think we all know, anyone who is watching this because their dog's a little bit more difficult to get pills into, that the longer they spend examining what you're giving them, or licking it or tasting it or having it in their mouth, the more likely it is they're going to spit out the pill. So let's look at some ways to deliver pills that might help us out. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. I think it's this one. Okay, so of course we have the hand delivery method, which is probably what most of us start with. And if this works for you, I really like this because you can see it goes down and the pill got into the dog. So this is just a meatball with a pill in it, and down it goes. Some of you may be already familiar with the rapid fire method of delivering pills. That's when you have, like here in my hand, I have a whole bunch of treats. They're actually soaked kibble, and one pill. And I'm going to put that one pill mush it in one of the treats or one of the kibbles. But the dog is going to get a whole bunch of these in quick succession, and only one will have the pill. And usually when they see the next treat coming, they quickly swallow what's in their mouth. So that can help you get that pill down. So here's Pancake. I'm giving him one of his pills in the morning. He's going to start out with no pill. Ooh, treats, no pill. I'm going to do at least 3 or 4 no pill. I think the next one might be the pill. Yep, that's the pill. Then quick, oh, here's another one before you even notice what's in your mouth. Give them a few more. I also like this method because if they swallow it that quickly, it's less likely they'll taste it at all. And then you don't run the risk as much of putting them off whatever treat it is you're trying to use to mask meds. If you've been doing giving your dog medication for a long time and they're a little bit suspicious of what you give them, it may be because either they've come to associate certain, normally very tasty foods with the bad taste of a pill, or if they happen to be on a medication that makes them feel not very good afterwards, they could make that association as well. So this rapid fire treat method won't avoid an association with feeling bad later if that is an effect of the medication you're giving, but it can keep them from really tasting the pill because it goes down so quickly. All right, so here's Juno showing off one of her favorite ways to take pills. You don't want to do this with really big pills, and you can only do this with a dog who's good at catching treats in the air. So here I have 4 cheese balls, and one of them has a pill in it. So she catches and just swallows quickly, especially when she knows more is coming. So that for her, that's a really easy way to get pills down. Unless if it's too big and I'm afraid she might choke on it, then I will do a different way. But for small pills that can fit in cheese, that's a pretty effective way to get pills into a dog who loves to catch treats. For peanut butter, we talked about just using peanut butter in general, but my favorite way of making sure a pill in peanut butter gets into the dog and stays in, here, I have a demonstration here. So small pill, pretty good sized glob of peanut butter on my finger, and then I let them take it, and then I scrape it off on their top teeth. So let me play that again. So that way they can't just lick the peanut butter on my finger and lick around the pill and then leave the pill. Just all in there. Now, those were all ways to feed from your hand. If you've got a dog who won't take food from your hand for whatever reason, you may need to make as attractive dish as you can and leave it with them. And here, Pancake wasn't feeling very good and wouldn't take food from my hand for a little while. Here I am getting his meds into him with warmed up lasagna with whipped cream on top of it. But, whatever it takes. And giving him a little space. Okay, so the delivery methods we just looked at were hand feeding, just giving your dog the food. The rapid fire treats, which can be just feeding one after another quickly from your hand, or you can mix it up and do the catching the treats in the air. Just make sure your pill stays in the treat when you throw it into the air. Or serve and leave, if you have a dog who won't take food from your hand. Now that last one is a little dicey, as probably a lot of you know, because one, if all the food's on a plate and it's way easier for the dog to pick around the pill, and you might not be 100% sure that they ate it. So I wanted to just say a couple things about medicating shy eaters or shy dogs who won't take food from your hand and maybe don't like to eat while you're watching. In our group here, I'm sure we have some of those. So one thing to avoid, which I know is hard when you're stressed out about getting the dog to take the medication, is to not stare right at them or crowd them or stay too close to them. A lot of times the dog won't touch the food while you're standing right there. So back up and give them space. If you do have to leave the room for them to eat, and this does happen, make sure afterwards that you really check the area well for pills that they spit out. Because a lot of times, as you probably know, they won't just leave them on the plate or in the bowl. They'll drop them all over the place. So shake out all the blankets, really look everywhere. And for dogs that you do have to leave for them to eat, I really prefer, if you can, doing the powder or crushed up pill in something like wet dog food or whatever. Something where if they ate the food, they ate the pill. When the pills are whole, it's much easier to for them to eat around them and for you to miss that they didn't get it, which can be bad. Okay, and just real quick about training to take pills. There are a couple ways that you can do this. The easiest way, which someone mentioned in our group, and I've seen a few other places, is to, when you don't need to give meds, substitute a kibble for a pill and just get your dog used to eating, like, something hard inside, say, a piece of cheese or whatever delivery method you're going to use for your meds. So here I'm just sticking a kibble into some string cheese, feeding it to my dog, so that they get used to that being a good thing. Everything in there is good and edible. This is Glenna from, I think, Wild Thing. I'll post the link to her business in the group. This is her dog who she has trained to be pilled. So if you couldn't give food with a pill, or you've just kind of given up on giving your dog pills in food, you could train them to do this willingly. So it's really too much detail to go into in this video, but I wanted to show you what's possible, and then you can follow up with her. So she opens the mouth, pops that pill in, and then she's going to follow with a treat because she's doing this as training. But you see, this allows her to do it without force. The dog has done this in training. So that is another option. If you've got a dog you can't, for whatever reason, give pills to in food. All right, everyone. So this was a real practical session again, nothing too glamorous, but boy, when you're struggling to get meds into your dog, you'll take any ideas you can get. I have been dealing with that a lot recently. Any questions from anyone in the group?